Hello everyone, and welcome to our YouTube channel, MovieScreen Recaps. Today, we are going to recap a horror and thriller film titled John Carter. Spoilers ahead. Watch out and take care. The movie begins in an exotic world named Barsoom. The planet is divided into three primary kingdoms, the Helium, Zodanga, and the Tharks. For millennia, Helium and Zodanga have been at odds. In the beginning of the film, we witness the army of Helium, dressed in blue capes, battling the army of Zodanga, dressed in red capes. Sabthan, the commander of Zodanga, is contacted by three men who claim to be God's emissaries known as Thurn. Matai, Shang, and Thurn's commanders hand him a mysterious blue sword and informs him that the goddess has selected him to receive it. The Thurns have chosen to assist Zodanga in his war efforts. They have command of a strange blue light known as the Ninth Ray, which allows them to outperform all other living beings on Barsoom. In the city of New York, a guy named Edgar is summoned to New York City by his uncle, John Carter. As Edgar arrives at the station, he is met by John's butler, who whisks him away to John's mansion. John, it turns out, is a rich businessman and a former Confederate Army commander. John's lawyer notifies Edgar about John's ultimate demise. John has bequeathed all his riches to Edgar. The lawyer then leads Edgar, who is astonished, to John's tomb, where his remains are being maintained. Yet, the mausoleum's entrance only opens from the inside. Later, the lawyer hands Edgar John's personal diary, which John has desired only to be read by Edgar. Once the lawyer has departed, he begins reading it. It begins by stating that Edgar was the only one who accepted John's unusual assertions as a youngster, thus telling him this story feels only right. The story begins in Arizona after the Civil War. John Carter is a former Confederate Army captain who now searches for gold in tunnels. Powell is a Union colonel who wants John to assist his U.S. cavalrymen in their fight against the Apache, so he kidnaps him and attempts to recruit him as a soldier. Yet, John no longer wishes to fight as a soldier. After numerous failed efforts in fleeing, he succeeds by knocking out a guard and stealing the colonel's horse. The captain and his soldiers are on his tail. They discover an armed Apache war party not so far away. The captain and his troops engaged in a gunfight with the crowd. In the middle of the turmoil, John attempts to flee, but the colonel is hurt in the battle. He saves the colonel from himself and leads him to a cave. John is unfamiliar with the cave because he has never come here to look for riches. He enters, strikes a match, and is astounded to see a large amount of gold embedded in the cave's roof. But a figure emerges behind him from nowhere. The guy is one of the characters we saw at the start of the film. The colonel informs John, who engages in combat with odd stranger. He shoots the man and causes him to tumble to the ground. When John approaches him, he hears the guy exclaim, "Barsoom," while holding a bizarre medallion. John takes up the pendant and says the word Barsoom several times. A dazzling blue light suddenly shoots out of the locket. As John opens his eyes again, he finds himself in an unfamiliar landscape. He gets up and attempts to walk, but he collapses at every step. He appears to be able to float in midair. He walks around in the unfamiliar atmosphere, confused. As he goes, he comes upon a hill where numerous eggs are hatching. Then, on enormous animals, a vast group of green critters with 6 limbs appear. The commander attacks him, forcing John to take a massive leap, the others being fired at John but stop where their captain commands them to. The monster identifies himself as Taz Tarkus and speaks in a strange tongue. As John identifies himself as John Carter from Virginia, the animals figure out that his name is Virginia. Tarkus asks John to leap again, but he refuses and assaults him. The aliens wounded John and kidnapped him. We learn that their species is known as Tharks. When they speak, Diha, the princess of the city of Helium, practices delivering a weapon she has devised to her father, the king of Helium. Elsewhere on the same planet, Helium is at war with another city called Zodanga and is ready to fall due to Thurn's siding with Zodanga. Diha has discovered the secret of Zodanga's Ninth Ray, which is employed to battle the war. As she shows the king her weapon, a guy sneakily triggers a glitch, leading it to explode. Sabthan, the king of Zodanga, wishes to marry Diha in order to stop the conflict, but she is adamantly opposed. If Sabthan marries her, he will become the ruler of Helium, and with the authority to control all of Barsoom. Meanwhile, the Tharks transport John to their town and place him among the newly born newborns. A female Thark called Sola gives John a liquid at night, after which he can comprehend Thark's language. The Tharks instruct John to leap high in front of everyone the next day. John realizes that Tharks has the medallion, and without it, he cannot return home. 2 warships arrive in the sky at the precise moment. Helium and Zodanga are fighting each other. The conflict draws a crowd for the Tharks who wager on who will win. Diha, the princess, is battling in the ships. She tries to take control of the spacecraft but falls off. John saves the princess by using his newfound leaping abilities. The Tharks begin to applaud for John, who is now battling with Diha against Zodanga's warriors. John changes the direction of the battle, allowing the Helium to win, but their spacecraft also crashes. Diha and John are in the company of the Tharks. Tharks are impressed with John's ability and hires him as a personal assistant. John feels hesitant about the proposal, but he does not oppose it. Diha and John chat late at night, and Diha confesses to John that they are on Mars, which is known as Barsoom in their language. John is taken aback and refuses to trust her. He informs her that he he is of earthly origin. Deha too finds it difficult to believe. Carter has extraordinary strength and can leap high due to his higher bone density and the planet's low gravity. Deha then transport him to the Thark's temple, where humans are not permitted. She believes that the temple will assist humans in discovering how to travel across worlds in the same way that John did. Sola, a gentle female Thark, follows them and begs them to stop. Deha shows John a statue of the goddess of Issus and reads some inscriptions on it. Even so, the three of them are quickly apprehended by the Tharks and sentenced to death for breaking into the temple. Tharkus requests that everyone leave him alone with the inmate in the cell so he can chop John's hands off. While they are alone, he explains that he is Sola's father and does not want the Tharks to kill them. He gives John his medallion and instructs him to travel to the Is River to solve the riddle of the goddess Issus and return to his realm. After some time, the Tharks notice that Tharkus has deceived them. Tal Hahus, Tarkus's advisory, seizes control and proclaims himself the new manager. Next, we see John, Deha, and Sola walking toward the Is River. Deha is leading the way, but Sola informs John that she is taking them to the city of Helium rather than the river. When John questions her about it, it becomes clear that she was transporting him to her city in order to employ him as a soldier in the conflict. Frustrated, John begs Sola to lead the way and abandons the princess. Deha says she did it just to avoid marrying Sabthan. He invites her to follow him to the river. She accepts because she has no other choice. The trio sail down the Is River till they approach a gigantic inverted pyramid. When John and Deha get to the top, they notice a weird blue light emerging on the ground. Deha recognizes that this is the strength of the ninth ray, from which she crafted her weapon. They also discover that Carter's presence on Mars is most likely the result of a clone of himself being transmitted from Earth to Mars through the ninth ray. Next, an army of Warhoons advances. Headed by Mai Tai Shang, the Thurn's leader, John courageously instructs Deha and Sola to run and faces the Warhoon army personally. Helium's monarch sends his troops to John's rescue, defeating the Warhoons and saving him. They transport a hurt John to Helium. Deha arrives at her house and meets her father. She is taken aback to find that King of Zodanga, Sabthan, present. He has arrived without a weapon or warriors to ask Deha to marry him and to put a stop to the conflict. Deha has no other option to end the battle, so she grudgingly accepts to marry him. In the scene that follows, we find John sleeping in a chamber in Helium Palace. Deha sends a soldier to retrieve him and covertly transports him to her chamber. Deha requests that John use the medallion to return to his home. When the guards enter his room, John vanishes. Deha believes John has returned to Earth, but he is really hiding from the military. After they depart, he tries to go outdoors, but is quickly apprehended by Mai Tai Shang. Mai Tai Shang's ability to transform into any creature around him absolutely amazes John. The entire city is preparing for Sabthan and Deha's wedding. Mai Tai Shang bonds John to himself with technology generated by the ninth ray. John is unable to control his body. Mai Tai Shang appears to be manipulating him with his wrist gadget. Mai Tai Shang then informs him that Sabthan intends to assassinate Deha and invade Helium following the marriage. Thurn sided with him in the fight because Sabthan was the easiest to influence. Yet Mai Tai Shang's true goal is to dominate all of Barsum through Sabthan. Mai Tai Shang is ready to murder John when an extraterrestrial canine he had previously befriended comes to his rescue. It eats off Mai Tai Shang's wrist gadget, freeing John. He dashes to a flying ship and takes off to prevent Deha from marrying Sabthan. However, John is unable to control the airplane and crashes in Thark territory. They have him imprisoned alongside a battered Tarkus. Talhuhas, the Thark's new king, pairs John and Tarkus with a huge animals known as white apes in front of the whole Thark populace. John succeeds to capture the apes. He then challenges Talhuhas to a battle, which he easily wins. Everyone applauds John, the new leader of the Tharks. He then persuades them to aid him in his war against Zodanga. The army of Tharks and John march to the wedding of Deha and Sabthan. John arrives barely in time to avert the wedding. Sabthan attempts to assassinate Deha after seeing him, but John intervenes just in time. A new battle between the warriors of the two cities starts. The Tharks, on the other hand, are now on Helium's side. The Zodanga is quickly defeated, but Mai Tai Shang escapes with John's medallion. John doesn't bother looking for the medallion since he intends to live on Mars as Deha's spouse. He and Deha marry, and the audience applauds. He is now Helium's prince. The next morning, John and Deha are standing on a balcony. Deha left John outside and enters the chamber. As Mai Tai Shang comes, John tries to resist him, but he uses the necklace to transport John back to Earth. When John awakens, he is coated in dust and his beard has grown long. He is in the same cave and looks towards Colonel Powell to see his bones, implying that a long time has passed in the Earth while he was on Mars. He looks about for a necklace but can't find it. He has no way of going back. The gold in the cave makes him wealthy. He is aware that there are more medallions on the planet. He establishes a mining firm and spends the next 10 10 years searching for the medallion, till one day he comes upon one on a website. John is overjoyed, but he is aware that the Therns have been watching him all along. When he travels to Mars, his body on Earth must be preserved since any injury to it will lead him to die on both planets. As a result, his tomb can only be accessed from the inside. He had planned his death in order to return to Mars. In his journal, John expressed his desire for Edgar to safeguard his tomb from the Therns in exchange for the gold. After reading the journal, Edgar is taken aback. He walks out to the tomb and tries to enter it using a secret password that turns out to be Ned, the nickname John gave Edgar as a child. A Thern approaching Edgar as the mausoleum doors open. He had been spying on Edgar, planning to murder John. But before he can attack Edgar, somebody from behind knocks him unconscious. Edgar is taken aback to find his uncle in front of him. As it turns out, John never discovered Thern's medallion. Everything of this, including his death, was staged in order to draw out a Thern and obtain his medallion. John then begs Edgar to preserve his tomb from now on and enters it. He sleeps on the bed with the medallion, saying the chance that will transport him back to Mars. We hope you've enjoyed today's video. If you've enjoyed it, please like and subscribe to our YouTube channel for more videos like this.